Hello, everybody. TJ Schwartz here, Edge and Flow podcast. I'm with my co-host Lucas Burnley. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
What's up, guys? Oh, that's a nice little pause. That's a
I was waiting for you to take it
you.
away.
Okay, all right, let me take it away. All right, so we're just rolling into the year, and we sat down and we were trying to figure out what we wanted to talk about, and we realized that we both had two new models drop with CRKT this week, and so we figured that's kind of a fun starting off point, kind of. Right? There's some info there.
Yeah, our juices are flowing over that.
Yeah,
dude, it's always exciting. The new catalog, because we've said it before, you wait 2 years. You design the knife, you give it to CRKT, you wait 2 years. With a corporation like that, it just takes the time for the R&D, the catalog, getting inventory, and then the launch day, and it just feels cool. So it's a fun thing to chat about. I have a few thoughts about how it's gone, and I'm really happy so far, but there's a lot of interesting
early
stuff.
days right now. We never get... we don't know out of the gate, how our models are performing. They drop right before SHOT Show, which I believe is that coming up next weekend.
Yeah. Roughly.
For you guys that don't know, SHOT is shooting, hunting, outdoor trade show. It's one of the big ones in Las Vegas, of which you and me have been to many.
Yeah.
Right. But we are not going this year.
Yeah.
I'm not even sad about it.
Yeah, I feel pretty good.
Yeah. I'm all right.
More dedicated knife shows, I think, are calling my name as opposed to SHOT. I want to get back to SHOT every few years, though.
Same.
It's cool.
It is such a big show, and you see people that are outside of our immediate industry. And it's fun just walking around too.
It's the show to get your foot in the door with companies if you want to talk to the actual executives.
Yep.
Because if you're at Blade Show, you're not going to get to talk to CRKT executives really,
right?
Unless you already have a meeting set up. But at SHOT, you could walk into a booth for Kershaw, CRKT, Benchmade, and be like, "Oh, there's CEO, there's the owner, there's they'll just be standing there."
Well, and I don't know, hack on this one too is if you do it at Blade Show, you're at Blade Show. Yeah. That's where all the knife makers are.
Yeah.
Just because it's SHOT Show, they're there to do, the companies are there to do business. But if you're a designer, you may actually have a better chance of getting in for a meeting or getting the right eyes on a product at SHOT, just because that's not the majority of who they're meeting with.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. So what models do you have out this catalog?
Oh, this is fun. So I figure go over what I got and then what you got, and then some. There's always strategy behind it,
notes.
Right? Yeah, there's some notes. Okay. So this year I have it's two compact versions. Okay. The first is the Tuna Compact, which I'm really, really excited about. The Tuna is a big knife. I really like it. It carries pretty easy due to the kind of the shape. It's thin, but it's still it's close to a 4-inch blade probably or something. It's a real big folder. So the compact, I think, hits this real sweet spot of maintains the functionality and the look. It's almost a 1-to-1 scale. So not all models, when you scale them, are you maintaining the true dimensions. Tuna is really cool. It's just scaled down. And then the other one is the Squid Compact, which is starting to become an oxymoron, because the Squid is a compact knife. It was always a compact knife.
Yeah.
This Squid is a baby squid.
And there's bigger squids, aren't there?
There are bigger squids.
So it's like a Russian doll.
There's medium squids. No, and I love it. And I could we'll go down a rabbit hole on this one, I'm sure. But this squid is super tiny. It is an 1.75-inch blade.
Wow.
Right. And I also think this is the perfect format for assisted opening knives. To me, this hits when it has assist. It feels
you don't have the leverage.
You don't have the
leverage.
It didn't.
Yeah.
So it makes it super fun. What do you have?
I've got a knife called the Dextro, which has a cool backstory that I can talk about. But the other one is the Overland Compact, which is the folding version of the typical Overland that you'd see from CRKT. That was the genesis also of my Overland fixed blade. So it's becoming a pretty well-rounded family at this point.
Yes.
And the Overland Compact, I can't remember the blade length, but it's 2-ish inches. Yeah. It's very, very short, but very tall.
Yeah.
And it's reasons for that, which
I think that knife, it turned out so well. And
Appreciate
that's a
that.
prime example of what I was talking about, a knife that there is nothing about that knife that just scales 1-to-1.
Right.
You are literally designing a completely new, like, entity,
Yeah.
but trying to like give it the personality of
The
something or
presence.
someone else. Yeah, the
Yeah.
presence. So how do you do that?
Well, that's a good question. That brings up a whole design conversation about. I've talked about this before to other people, but like if you take a knife, really popular, 30% of people say it's too big. You think, I'll make a smaller one so that they can have a knife as well. And you can't just click and drag and scale a knife down always. Sometimes you can, but there's nuance. Even if it's aesthetically scaled down, like mechanically, there's stuff
Yeah.
that often has to change. And sometimes that mechanical change drives design change, and it's like becomes a cycle of like, well, now it doesn't even look like that knife anymore.
Right.
And sometimes that's okay. But yeah, there's with the Overland in particular, like the way the Overland is because it's got that like elevated handle. That I'm talking about the full size.
Yep.
Your hand isn't that close to the edge because the way it cants up. And if you shrink it, you run out of handle. And so you need to have it where your hand can be further forward. And so if you look at it, the Overland, the original has a guard. The new one has no guard. So your finger, you go all the way up to the edge in the compact. And so it's like you needed more handle in your hand, no guard, to make this like feel organic and ergonomic. Right. So there's just concessions you make when you start to, your hand's the same size, but the knife is smaller. So something's got to change.
Right. Well, and there's a fine line between like a scaled version or something reminiscent and like a caricature. So you're not like generally not going for caricature. Although like sometimes with the squids, I actually really like that. It's super playful.
Yeah.
But on the Overland Compact, I felt like you were able to, one, you maintained a colorway, right? So you maintained some like recognizable features, and then your overall use of line, it just feels like it fits perfectly in the family. Right.
Yeah.
It's an easy jump to make that like, oh yeah, like that's an Overland.
Well, it's kind of funny because I drew it on paper and it didn't look like the Overland at all. It was a totally different knife. And I put it into CAD, and the tip, I was having issues with the tip of the blade not being covered. And like there was, you've had this happen where the geometry of the actual tip and the backspacer wasn't working. And I started moving it around and it started looking more like the Overland. And it was like almost a convergent design. Yeah. And once it started to look like the Overland, I was like, it's an Overland Compact. Yeah, and so I pushed it like over the edge.
It's so good. I think that knife is going to crush. One, it hits a size range that I think is really popular, right? I mean, that's like the squid is a 2.25 inch blade. Anybody can carry it, and even the Overland is like, it's like a good size knife. Yeah. Right. So having that option to where like, oh man, I really like the look, but I want less pocket space.
My wife loves it because women have the unfortunate circumstance of their pants not having deep pockets.
Yeah.
And they have those lame little like half pockets. And that Overland Compact's the only knife I've designed that
actually
fit
fits
like vertically with the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
So
dude, to me, that is actually one, it serves a super functional purpose as like a designer. You're actually satisfying a need that is not being met. When I did the original squid, that was part of the thought process. And people still will mention it, be like, or it fits in my watch pocket, or it fits in like it's a girl pocket. You're literally a half depth, which is ridiculous. Unless you're wearing like dovetail workwear or something rad. And you have actual grown-up size pockets.
Right. Yeah, dude. And I got to tell you a story about your squid your tuna compact.
Okay.
So the first time I ever saw it was on top of a mountain.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was with the CRKT guys.
Hallucinating?
Yeah, that's right. It was a mountaintop experience. Okay. Yeah. I was in my basement. No. So I'm on top of a mountain because we're taking photography and video for like products and stuff. And we're in Southwest Oregon, like in the Canyonlands down there. Nice. We're up in Jeeps, like on a trail, like up in the top, like not a just dirt road, like a real rocky trail. And they start rolling out like knives in these big rollouts, and they had photographers there taking pictures. And I'm like, is that a little tuna?
Yeah.
that is a little tuna. And it was like pre-release, you know, it was this summer. And so I got to see it and I was like, no kidding. And I was like, I gotta tell Burnley about this. Like,
That's so funny.
it was a cool moment to have the reveal in the back of a Jeep, because Kyle at CRKT rented a Jeep for this.
I love it.
So I was like, oh, it's perfect.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, okay. There's something to talk about right there. Both of us have compact models based on a popular model.
Mm-hmm.
You have a strategy behind why you do model extensions?
A strategy, and I'm also tempted to pump the brakes on that same strategy at the same time.
Okay.
So the strategy is, if you have a recognizable trait of a knife, even if it's not like we said, the exact design, but that certain traits, certain flavor, certain style people are going to gravitate towards it. Familiarity is one of the main things that sells anything.
Yep. And we're especially talking about mass production.
Yeah, mass production.
This is where it really, it's if you're a bartender, you want to work in a high volume bar, right?
Yep.
This is the same thing.
And and just like it's known in the auto industry that if you change the front end or the grill of a vehicle, it's always hated because it's not familiar. Yeah. And then about 12 months later, it becomes like the new normal, and then it's enjoyed and people like it.
Yeah.
And it's like just this acceptance that like the first little bit, people are going to be a little put off, and then they're going to like it because it's forward thinking. But with it, like say the Overland Compact is like, well, I've already got people over the hump of appreciating this design. A lot of people have held that knife. So if I do something similar, I don't have to get over that first hump. So there's times to do that and times when you should be kind of pushing the envelope.
Yep.
And my only fear though is like I have the Overland Fixed Blade, which is a major flagship for my whole brand for the knives I make. I've got the Overland Folder, which so far I think is the top selling one I've done for CRKT. And then this is a hopefully successful another Overland. And I don't want to be, I want to be a little bit careful about like going overly one dimensional and not getting people out of their comfort zone in a good direct way. You know, sure. I still want to do that.
100%. Okay. So that's your drive. So there's the business side of it, right? And the sales side of it. And then there's us as creatives. Frame this in the context of music. And I think it's a really similar process, which is you have a hit song, right? People love that song. They come to your group because of that song, maybe even, right? It's like top 40. Okay. You're always going to probably have to play that song. Okay. I think that especially bands that like really hit in like an era where a type or like a style is prevalent, this is like doubly true for. Okay. However, you do like offshoots. That's where like solo projects and side projects and like for musicians like come in, I feel like. I think we're in a really similar thing, or at least this is how I look at it for myself, which is like the Squid at this point is more than 10-year-old design. So while in a certain way, I have interest and style that has moved past that, I also realize the value of maintaining it and allowing it to grow, right? Just you just can't focus everything on it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not overcommitted to it. And you are, that's the thing. You've got all these new designs. I do see like certain times where like a company will find a formula that works and then run with it for 20 years. Right. And I'm like, I can see the business case for that.
Sure.
But like as a designer first, I like always doing something exploratory. There's got to be some.
Yeah. Regardless of whether it's money making or not, I think it's like almost a moot point. There's also another thing to take into account here, especially with anyone who is like a manufacturer who is like a flagship model. As makers, like, you know how hard it can be to start a project, dial that project. It's popular. It can be super hard actually to get out from underneath it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quaiken was the first one that ever happened to me with, because like it was right when I was learning CNC. I got set up to make that one knife. And then like 5 years later, that was the only knife I had probably made.
Yeah. Dude, it's a good tie-in that I have a memory of that is talking about music. Like you just said, I went to a Coolio concert a few years ago.
Nice.
Gangster Paradise, like everyone's heard.
Classic.
He played a concert and it was like a 5-10 song set. It wasn't a full concert. And the whole crowd was like pretty dull and like pretty out of it. And he was going to save that Gangster Paradise for last. And everyone's just kind of like dazed. It was like broad daylight. It was a festival. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to play it now. And everyone's like, yeah. And then everyone's like dancing all of a sudden. And you could tell in his voice, he's like, gosh, dang it.
Yeah.
Like nobody likes anything but this one song.
That one song.
It's
well, it's what becomes, it's what's known, and people do like familiarity.
Yeah.
The custom side, we're allowed to play with like really weird or avant-garde shapes and designs and constructions. And there is an audience for that. But when it comes to production design, like doesn't work. And I think probably like, I know that I've had designs that I've tried and done in production and that have just flopped. And I would guess that you have a couple of those under your belt.
I think you have to do it though.
Yeah,
I think
to do it.
And I got to commend CRKT. They do go out on a limb a lot more than some companies.
Routinely.
And I think there's a case for that in that, like, there's a lot of knives that are standard today that you just look at and you like, I'll say this, like, I'll call it out. Spyderco. When they first came out, it was like a different looking knife.
Yep.
Like just the way those things are shaped.
Yep.
But now look at a Spyderco and it's like, wow, that is quintessential. That is like a pillar of the knife industry. Yeah. And they still look different.
They all look different. They basically don't look like anything else in the industry. Yeah. And anytime a design there's a design language that Spyderco uses. They do offsets. Like the spider hole is the most obvious one. That's a hole, right? So it's visually recognizable, but like where they hump the back of the blade up or do a certain type of drop. I mean, their lines are so unique.
And they invented the pocket clip. So the concept of that style of knife is like, it was very exploratory at the time, I bet.
Yeah. Was it on the Police? No, the Police didn't have a pocket clip, maybe?
I don't know when it started, but my understanding is that Sal invented the pocket clip.
Dude, where's our fact checker? Do we have a fact checker?
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, that's industry knowledge that's floated around, but I don't have the paperwork on that, just so everyone knows.
Ooh, okay, I'm super interested. Okay, so our fact checker is going to add that to the show notes.
Yeah, right.
It's not
right.
Not really going to happen, but dude, fun. Okay.
But I will say, like, I told Doug at CRKT this, he's the guy that we talked to who is a big part of like acceptance of designs. I was telling him kind of part of my strategy with CRKT and designing for them is like, I like to revolve like from a little bit avant-garde, a little bit extreme to like a little bit more neutral. And there was I think it was 2 catalogs ago, I came out with the tailbone and the parascale.
Dude.
And they were very, very strange. And they've done well. I mean, they're not like blockbusters, but they're still in the catalog. They've done pretty well. But they were really out there. And I was just like, you never know. And then they did okay. They weren't like the big winners, but now I'm kind of revolving back to a little more neutral. And it's like, I would like to just keep that pendulum swinging because you never know when something's going to take off you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
But you can't not serve meat and potatoes.
No, and CRKT, I think, has proven that routinely through the years. And that is
the Karambit, dude. Joe Caswell.
Joe Caswell. I mean, that is like, they just have some models in there that are, I'm going to forget the name now because I'm on the spot. What's the small fixed blade neck knife?
The minimalist.
The minimalist. The minimalist is such a great example of like, it's a small design, it's a fixed blade, right? And like a lot of production will be like, fixed blade doesn't sell that great. And like that knife has been a bestseller, blockbuster. So you don't know how it's going to work out. You can't really plan for it. And ultimately, I actually think you would lose something if all you did was like try to hit blockbusters.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
knives like the tailbone. Yeah, knives like the tailbone are so interesting to me because they like inside of CRKT, they create a certain type of like vibe of like creativity, and they have always done that. Like they've how many strange locking mechanisms or like bolster locks or like the swing lock. I mean, they've done so many kind of interesting models, and some of them probably sell good. Some of them don't. Another one that would be like a prime example of this is the Halligan knife, single sided, like the Kiss.
Yep.
You're like, it's half a knife.
Yeah. Get rid of the front scale and make it a washer.
Yeah. It's like it crushed.
Yeah.
You know?
And back to that familiarity conversation, if you're talking like the meat and potatoes type knife, I think maybe one of the best ever is the M16.
The best ever. It's a gold standard.
And Ken Onion, you know, he was talking about, it's like, that is a steak knife.
Yep.
If you reach in your drawer and you pull out that black handled satin blade steak knife, it's the same handle shape.
Yep.
And it's like the familiarity is from like this. You're like 5 years old trying to reach in the drawer and your mom like swats your hand. Like that's how young you were when you first saw that design. And you saw it as a folder and you're like, oh my gosh, that's just me. Like that. That's my life.
Recognizable.
Yeah.
And that knife's running 20 some is like one of the first knives in CRKT. I've always used that as like anytime I sit down with the company and we're talking about like what I'm trying to do or like where my knives are or what just failed, like that knife gets brought up probably in almost every meeting. I'm like, all I want to do is the M16. Like, you know, icon. The Squid is as close as I've got in CRKT to that, where it's just like, okay, there's probably 20 SKUs of it. It's had years, but it is nothing like what the M16 has achieved. I mean, it's like there has to be probably 100 SKUs of that thing, and we're 25 years in.
Yeah, and you still see it everywhere,
dude. Talking about shot, that is, I can't count the number of times someone would bring one of those things up to the booth, and it would be like a nub. It's like a thumb in a handle, and they'd be like, "I carried this on 3 tours, and like." You know, it's just completely roached out. And they're like, I love this knife. They're like, put it back in their pocket and go away. And you're like, wow.
I saw an article where there was some huge event. It might have been some political event or something like 5 years ago. And there was an article written where they pocket checked all the guards, law enforcement, and like personnel that were protecting. And the most common knife was the M16.
That's crazy. Well, and it's like M16 and M21. I mean, there's so many variations. Sizes,
M16
scales,
family.
M16 family, which was the original. M4, like, man, it's wild. That's a great example because those knives are actually, from a design language standpoint, I mean, they're very similar, right? It's the knife scaled really well. So there's big ones, there's little ones, there's medium ones, and all the different constructions, frame locks, liner locks. I mean, now there's, deadbolts. There's all these different configurations of it. It's pretty cool. I wonder if we'll see like a cross lock one.
Yeah.
Seems like,
don't let the secrets out. No, I don't actually know. But
I don't know. That was a legitimate question. Just thinking like how many, variations that thing's gone through.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, man. Okay. That was a good little rabbit hole, I guess we got into.
Good little riff. Yeah. And I guess do you have anything else you want to say about the tuna or the squid that you just dropped?
I don't know, man.
I had one more thought about the Dextro.
Okay. Yeah.
Only if you're wrapped up. Okay. Well, the Dextro, I just launched a new model fixed blade called the Confidant that I'm custom making. Those are actually the same knife, and you may not believe it, but it's another example of the scaling situation.
Totally.
And the Dextro, the handle is big enough to have an actual pinky hook. It's very, very small, but like if you look at a lot of knives like the tuna, they have like a little bit of a retention, so it like doesn't slide out.
But not a true like bird's beak.
Yeah, just a small flare.
Yeah.
And I wanted the Confidant to be like more of a hunting knife, and the blade shape of the Dextro is really good for that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to make that into a fixed blade for hunting. And then I scaled it a little bit, the handle size. And I was like, well, with hunting, you're rotating the blade a lot. Like you're spinning it around because you're reverse cutting and stuff. I'm like, that little point, like it's a problem. And so by scaling it down, I had to totally round out the back of the handle. And so it completely diverged. And so I actually designed that knife for CRKT and the Confidant, and they were going to be kind of a duo like the Overland, but it didn't work. Like it didn't translate to a fixed blade that well.
Right.
And so I diverged. And so it's like a little known fact. And that the Dextro was going to be called the Confidant, but wasn't able to due to some just trademark stuff. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
It's
So
crazy how on certain designs, literally changing like one feature
yeah,
starts to eliminate the recognizability.
yeah,
And like the Dextro and the Confidant, I see it, but there's like a neutrality there, right? That is really tool driven. So on the folding version, yeah, it's like if you change a couple of features, all of a sudden you're like kind of out
yeah,
of the concept.
yeah. And it wasn't a flipper, so the flipper
Right.
disappeared. That changes it.
That
And
changes it.
then also there's a little bit of a top hump on the front of the handle of the
Yep.
of the Dextro for like a front guard, so it has
Yep.
a little more of a tactical guard look into it. Also had to ditch that because of ergonomics for a hunting knife, and so
Right.
things just started to disappear, and it was like, oh well, now I'm somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
Very fun.
it's
It's a classic. I feel like that there's like as a maker, there's certain knives where I'm like, this is going to sound ridiculous, but like, yeah, that's a knife. Like
yeah,
there's a quality to it that just feels so familiar as like a knife industry knife. It's like you look at it and you're like, yes, like a company could probably build like a brand around that knife just as a start. Like
hmm,
you're like, okay, this is our knife that we make. This is our folder. It's
a
just
knife.
has those classic lines.
Yeah, yeah,
Pretty cool.
and well, I appreciate it, and that's to me that's like kind of the success of say the Griptilian from
Yeah.
Benchmade. I had a friend that bought one back in the early days when I was getting into knives. Like he asked me, he's like, I know you know knives. Like what should I buy? I'm just $100 or so.
Yep.
I'm an outdoorsman. I was sending him options, and he didn't like any of them because I had like a little bit more of a at the time, especially like I was looking at the style, and I was
Right.
engaged in the community to where I was like, this is new and fresh. Like you like
Right.
this,
Right.
and for him, he's like, he ended up buying the Griptilian kind of like without my recommendation because he's like, it just looks like a knife.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying that, and I was like, "It does. It looks
Dang,
like a
like
knife."
sometimes that's okay.
Yeah,
Like just
yeah,
for it to look like a knife. Well, it's
yeah,
like you like look at fashion or anything else. As you get further up the line of creativity, like the designs and what people enjoy, architecture, like what people start to enjoy, gets further and further away from like what you just think of as like the standard form,
yeah, yeah.
right?
So I try to keep that in mind. That is a moment that has imprinted on me,
Yeah,
and that's like the way I designed for CRKT. Like I said, is
yeah,
like come back to like what is a knife, and
yeah,
like I just want it to look like a knife, and
yeah.
then go back and to get a little more exploratory. And that's I think that's just how I've tried to position myself because I remember him saying that I'm like, there's so many people like that. Like they don't want the flash. You know, they're not looking for special.
That was just a good knife too.
Yeah.
Like that the Griptilian series was awesome. I will say, like out here in Bend, pocket knives are more common than probably almost anywhere that I've lived. Like it's just really common just to like everybody's like we'll go out with the kids and like the majority of parents that we're hanging out with, like someone will have a pocket knife or I
Mm-hmm.
just see it, right? And a lot of places that's not true. And Griptilians and what is the one that came out kind of after
Bug
that?
out
The bug out. Like you see
and
bug outs everywhere.
the
And I will,
940.
yeah. And I think it's probably a lot of that is like, we got a big REI in town and there's a lot of outdoors people. So there's climbers and skiers and everybody else. And it's like, if you read
Benchmade
Outdoor
and REI are
Magazine,
kind
yeah,
of a match made in heaven.
kind of a match. So you see them
Yeah.
everywhere, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
That's right. No, it's fun, dude.
It really
I tell
is.
people this a lot. Like when we're thinking about, if I'm just picturing like put myself in the shoes of a guy walking into REI or Cabela's or
Yep.
Sportsman's or Amazon, like I have such a different sensation about like putting pen to paper than I would if it's like somebody's going to come to my site who's
Right.
a true knife enthusiast and they want to buy something really special that's something they've never seen before and they've probably seen most knives. So it's like it's a little bit of a different thing.
Well, it's counterintuitive
Yeah.
because what it means is a lot of times the thing that you are super interested in at a given point in your career is actually not the thing that would be a saleable item or
Mhm.
saleable at scale.
Mhm.
Right. I think that can be a really tricky barrier to cross for new designers because you're so used to your work being popular. And then you're like, all right, here it is. Here's my style. If you don't take into account the company that you're designing for, their current audience, their manufacturing capabilities, you really run the risk of like hamstringing yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I say that completely from experience
Mhm.
because I tried to push designs through that. Like now I realize like, oh yeah, I was just like super weird, super
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
But
And
I
then,
liked it.
but there's the group of people that like weird,
Yeah.
and weird is subjective, but it's a cool thought experiment. And
Yeah.
data, I don't want data to drive my design,
Yeah. I'm the
but
same way.
I'm gonna zoom in on it sometimes
Yeah.
and at least check back and be like, okay, where am I at? Like, am I giving the people what they want?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, you gotta have pad thai on the menu, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes like you just need the fan favorite. And
if you got beer on tap,
yeah,
you gotta have an IPA in there, right?
Yeah.
Like nowadays.
Yeah, nowadays. Oh man. All right. So can you still hear me? I just kicked a cord and like almost destroyed my entire
I saw
setup.
your ceiling.
Yeah.
It looked good.
Where should we go, man? Anything else that you want to talk about? That
well, I picked up my tumbler today. My new tumbler.
big little shop update. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Deeper.
I've owned it, and it's been sitting in Boise, which is 30 minutes away, but that was like 3 weeks ago, but I didn't have media.
Nice.
And they had special ordered it. So got the media in, zipped in there, threw it on the flatbed trailer, got it parked in my driveway right now.
Nice.
And got to figure out what to do to get it off of there and all that stuff, but it's there.
Exciting. I had both tumblers running this morning.
Nice thing is it's max size that you could plug into like a 15 amp, 20 amp, like standard outlet.
Yep.
So I don't have to do any crazy work to get it to run, but I do have to drill holes in the floor wherever I put it.
Oh, wow. You actually have to hard mount it?
Yeah. I mean, it came with the bolts and it says it like bold print. So I was probably going to run it I kind of want to see, like, is it just going to walk? I bet it'll like after a few hours, like maybe walk or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
so I run those AV75s. Raytex.
I've got one.
Right. You've got one. We were talking about the M16. The M16 is Kit Carson.
Mm-hmm.
Got the idea for the Raytech from Kit Carson.
You dude, really?
Yep. And same with Zerblast.
Yeah.
Zerblast and my Raytech, all of those as like lessons.
Kit Carson.
Are Kit Carson lessons.
And just a somber note, but like people may not know this. He passed away, 3 years ago?
Yeah, four years ago, probably.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Classic.
Kit.
Just a legend.
Yep.
That's all. And
he's
then
come up so much lately because like we've been doing knife shows and just going to hang out with people. And I routinely bring him and Ken into the mix as like, hey, this like Kit and Ken have done this for years. And like, look at that. Look how much fun they had. Look at how people got to spend time with them. So,
and also people may not know this, the flipper used to be known as the Carson flipper.
Yeah.
And there's one reason for that. That's Mr. Kit Carson came up with that. And it, I think, might have been on the M16.
Yeah. That was I was going to ask when we were talking about it. I felt like it was the first production flipper. And I don't know, like I don't think they really flipped like what we think of as like a modern flipper. It was like it was like a guard, but a swing guard that you could use to open the knife. That's my memory. I could be off on this.
Then they realized if we sharpen this detent, then you can actually flip it.
Change it. You're basically adding like you're loading up pressure before it releases.
Your finger becomes the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my spring.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys didn't see that because, it's
he's
audio,
pointing at the ceiling. Yeah. Very.
Oh man. All right. So you got some like minor shop updates. We're just fully back into the swing. We are getting ready for a drop.
Are you dropping? Are you at liberty to say?
Yeah. Cause this will also probably release. So we're doing a drop of Cypops. I'm still working on prototype soft goods, with my buddy's company, Paladin 33 here in Bend. And as with prototyping and manufacturing, I've got a product that we were supposed to have done at one point and we didn't. So we're releasing now. And that is, we're calling it the Lolly Bag. Ooh. And it's basically I designed them for the Kentucky show as a money bag. So because you see, if you do knife shows, like everybody shows up and they've got a backpack and they've got like a big fat roll of cash or like a stack, or like you'll see people with money stapled together. Like, and I've always used like some kind of like fanny pack or like bank cash bag at shows. was like, how cool would it be just to do like a simple, I'm holding it up so TJ can see it.
Yeah.
Like just a simple like
Dude,
drop organizer.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So we're going to do those. That has been like such a ridiculous diversion for me.
It's fun.
It's super fun. It's a different workflow. It's a different type of product, but it's related.
Yeah.
This is like all the right
soft goods, man. That's
distractions.
A different ballgame.
I know.
Pretty cool.
I know. So we're having fun with it. We've got like 3 or 4 products that are kind of like that are rolling, and just playing around with new ideas. So
yeah, no, that's fun, dude.
Yeah, got that.
I'm excited to see it. When's the drop?
Hopefully Friday. Yeah, and this is the first drop. I mean, coming out of the holidays, man, it's like just absolute madness. So we're trying to get back into like the swing of things.
Yeah. I know how it is.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm trying to get my tumbler set up so that I've got a bunch of overlands like kind of like queued for this tumbler, and I've been like praying that this media shows up because I'm like, they're just ready to go in. And my Raytech, it does a really good finish, but I'm at a volume point now where it's like, it just can't it can do it.
Yeah.
But I can't stand to rattle my entire house for 10 hours a day for like a week straight.
Yeah.
So the idea here with this one is like the overall tumbler hours of running should be like a fraction. And
I completely forgot that you had a Raytech, and I had built a silencer.
Yeah. I have the plywood and foam leaning against my house that I bought to silence it. And I had it, and I was like designing the box, and I got to thinking, I'm like, this tumbler's not big enough. What am I doing?
What are you doing? Yeah. I actually ended up taking mine apart and like scrapping it because I tried putting it on Facebook Marketplace, and nobody wanted a weird large foam insulated box for some reason. I will say this though, just maybe like someone's listening and has this problem going on. It had a weird side effect, which is it increased the temperature while I was tumbling. And when I was tumbling brass, we started to see parts patina in the tumble. And I'd never seen that before. And I was like, what is going on? The only thing that I could come down to was you'd open the lid and it would probably be like 100 degrees in the box.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, it's literally something is happening, and the heat is doing, I don't know what the actual like reaction would be, but there's the only thing. And when I stopped putting it in the box, it stopped happening. Solution was going to be like add like a small like computer fan and just vent it. I will say though, it made it delightful to work next to. So if you're stuck, curious to hear who Mr. Deber is.
Yeah. And Mr. Deber's a rectangle. We've talked about it before, but I don't think I explained the reason why I got one. It's the form factor is really good for the cubic footage that it has relative to the bowl. But another advantage is a bowl can only tumble so long of a knife before it binds.
Right.
And this, you can actually put a knife in that's like the full length of the bowl, which for that it's like 30 something inches. So unlimited space for like length.
Are you zip tying?
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason you do that, basically tumblers are constantly moving and revolving. So like it's like helical, I guess, right? Like for the most part, like you're kind of, it's moving through a few different axes.
Yeah.
But parts that are flat can have a tendency to either like, is it hydroscopically? Is that a word? Is that what I'm thinking?
Hydraulically,
maybe. Like basically they can like suction to each other. In the Mr. Deber's, so the Raytechs are round, so that doesn't happen to the sides, but parts can stick to each other. In the Mr. Deber's, the sides are flat. So I think a part can essentially get stuck over there. The vibration like pushes it up and then it just stays. If you run a zip tie through a hole in the tang, it helps make sure that it never is able to line up in a way void free and stick.
And if it does still stick, like if the zip tie is not enough, I've already been meaning to do this, but I did discover some time back, 3D printed parts can last in ceramic tumbling infinitely long. Like we're talking hundreds or thousands of hours.
Yeah.
And so I want a 3D print, a special, imagine like the clips that you put like a shower curtain on a rod with, where it's like a little clip. But if I played with that shape
Yeah.
to like totally not allow it to go against the wall, like if
Right.
it's actually rigid like a ring,
Right.
but it has to be the right size where another knife won't go into it and then be
Right.
like locked into it.
Yep.
So I'd have to like play with it like Tinker Toys
Because you
and
might
try
even
to,
just be able to do small barbells. Imagine like a barbell with a threaded end,
yeah,
and you run one of those through, and then it's like, that's it. It's
just
going to
doesn't,
constantly keep tumbling. And it's also
yeah,
like the pivot point
yeah,
hits the side, just like flip more. Because the
yeah,
other thing you don't want to do is you're like TJ said, you can't have another piece like pierce that and get stuck together.
yeah,
And it can't affect like the end finish. So it has to be
mhm,
able to move too.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, if you just put a fixed post that can't move, then the
right.
media can't touch the steel right around it,
Continually.
and so you get a weird like halo effect around the hole. But if it's the right diameter and it's moving, then the media can still do it. But yeah, regardless, if I get some sticking, if it's like 1 in 20, 30 parts, it just gets retumbled. But if it becomes like a real problem, then I can just engineer some kind of 3D printed apparatus, but it's solvable. The other thing is I was thinking about is like I could clean up the walls of the tumbler real good and make like some 3D printed like serration
Yeah.
little pieces
Yep.
and like somehow put them on there so that it
Dude,
can't
it's
get a
endless.
suction.
This is where the ADHD really kicks in. And it's
Yeah.
like, you have to be so careful because just making things for making things
Yeah.
is so fun. Speaking of which, my brain just like glitched out, and something I saw on Instagram this morning that I did not know existed. We talked a little bit about a tool that I use, which is the ultrasonic polisher.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tool and die making tool. It basically oscillates a ceramic stone at like 20,000 RPM a second, I think.
Yeah. Well, because it's not oscillating mechanically, it's
Right.
oscillating with sound,
With
like literal sound
It's
waves.
literally vibrating.
Yeah.
Okay. And I use it for getting into like small spaces that I don't want a dimensional change on. So lately I've been using it on lock faces to remove tooling marks because I've started hard milling my lock faces. And then I go in with my ultrasonic polisher and I remove all the mill marks. Okay. Because I'm doing it manually. I saw something today called an ultrasonic knife. Have you ever heard of that?
I saw the image. I was driving, so I didn't get to look at it.
Dude.
But dude, that sounds insane.
It's the guy's account is Vice_Chief on Instagram. The way that he was using it was actually with 3D printed parts, and it basically functioned like a hot knife in foam. Like if you're like looking at model makers or something like that. Crazy. Yeah. So cool. So I'm going to see if I can like rig up an X-Acto blade.
Do it. I want to see that. It's like a lightsaber.
Basically, yeah. He was just showing it like parting a section of 3D printed plastic, just going straight through it against a line. Like you'd have a very hard time like cutting it accurately.
Oh yeah. That stuff's pretty hard to cut.
Yeah. Vice_Chief.
Awesome.
Just go check. One, he's also got a really cool page.
Yeah. Eccentric dude.
Yeah,
like
super eccentric dude. I think you might have turned me on to him actually.
I think so. I think he popped up randomly on some feed that I had.
Kind of Blade Runner-y.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah. Yeah, he talks a lot about like design philosophy.
Yeah.
Which is I obviously geek out on that. And not design from like an aesthetic necessarily, but like engineering design, like mechanical design.
Right.
It's cool. Very cool.
It is cool. Are there any other feeds that you've been like watching actively?
Vitally, I think it's Bulgarov.
Oh yeah, dude, he's so good.
He designs CGI crazy freaking robots and like sci-fi. So the new RoboCop movie that came out like 4 years ago, he designed the RoboCop for that movie.
He
designs like for blockbuster, $100 million films. Yeah. But he has this crazy computer that's probably like 20 grand so that he can render things so fast. And it's like almost every day he's just posting some crazy rendering model, like just crazy, just insane. I love it.
The everydays, like, so I did like a long time ago, I did that Sketch 365 project. That is hard. And it actually like the first, I think I did like 155 days straight or something. And then like, it might've taken me 3 years, 6 months or something like that. Like I remember it timing out really weird. It's hard. These guys like people crap where you're just like, dude, how
Mm-hmm.
are you doing an everyday? Well, I guess at the point you made like 165 million off of an NFT.
Yeah. I guess if that's your only job, maybe it's
doable. Do it now.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I'm trying to get with the CAD stuff a little bit, is I'm trying to force myself to do like little bits every day.
Yeah. Until AI just defeats us all, and
dude,
we're just subjects.
I just think cat's out of the bag at this point. Like there's, I mean, obviously like just from like our consumer standpoint, like I've sent you a bunch of stuff in the last few days, but like chat GPT, like obviously it has limitations because it's not fact checking. Right. So there's no like oversight in if the information it's giving you is real, but it sounds real.
Yeah. The goal is not to be a Google type search. It's to be a human type. Communication,
predicting the next word in a sentence. And same with like the drawing components, which like you had said, like, you know, there's a huge conversation about the moral usage of that process to design art. And like, I actually like it. There's not like, it's taking copyrighted art, remixing it and turning artwork out. Like
here's a little bit of a truth bomb.
Lay it on me.
That's how everyone's brain works.
I know that. But you have to do the work.
Yeah.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's out of the bag. Like there's no, whether it is good or bad is almost beside the point now.
It's here.
So I look at it and I'm like, well, you either figure out how to work within the system or work against the system. But there's no like,
but AI will remember that you worked against the system. So choose wisely.
Oh man, dude.
Skynet.
I don't know. ChatGPT was pretty rad. Dude, this is a fun episode. I feel like we're actually just like randomly talking, and it's super fun.
What if we design an AI designed knife, and we call it the Skynet?
I mean,
that'll ruffle some feathers.
Not wrong. Pretty good. I don't know. I need like, again, I need more distractions. Like I need a hole in the head. And I feel like AI is probably a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
But yeah, all this stuff, dude, it's crazy because all this stuff is permeating our culture at every level. And so like as designers or as makers, these are things that actually do affect what you are doing, what you may be doing, the types of companies that you might be working with. You can't like, I mean, you can just decide to avoid it. But I think if you're curious, it's a fun thing to like, just kind of play around with.
I'm a almost universal technology embracer,
right?
With an asterisk. Like it's to be respected and used like a tool, and there's you know, there's power and responsibility in that too. But I generally embrace technology because I think it's wise to do so. That's just my general take.
But I mean, I would say the same thing. And it's like, even maybe despite like my urges to not, it's human, like the convenience, there are larger things at play. And I realize like, hey, like, yeah, I can say that I essentially want to be like a Luddite, but I don't, because I really like my iPhone.
Hey, you bought all that Forge and stuff when you saw
dude, I know. Then I take videos of it on my iPhone.
Yeah, right.
Sweet.
All right.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to get back into that soon. That's like right now, like since we've been back from holiday, it's just kind of been like putting pieces back together. We've got like the SQD project. We've got a bunch of like little production projects and just trying to like figure out, man, this year feels different. And I don't know why. I don't know. I'm sure that's not universally true, but I feel different going into this year, and it's really exciting.
Relative to like last year or most years?
The last couple of years have been such like a weird vortex that I'm not actually sure. Definitely in relation to the last couple of years though. Just like, and again, with us moving and stuff, I think maybe that plays into it too, but I don't know. I think that this year is looking like there's like a different, maybe I have like a little bit different focus, and there's some exciting things on the horizon, and that's enough like at the beginning of a year to like start off in a pretty cool way.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Talk to me in December.
That's good to hear. A little change in the winds is always good for creativity.
It's
and
true.
all
That's
that good
necessary.
stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Recently I was listening to a podcast and they got into kind of like time management, but more like how to enjoy the time that you're managing versus like, this is how you maximize every second that you have working. It's like, well, here's how you can actually do your schedule and not hate your life.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I thought was really interesting was that the presenter said, if you don't give your brain breaks, it will automatically take them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's super true. But like if you're doing Pomodoros or something like 25 on 20, 5 off, that works great. But if not, like if you're just working, it's like eventually your brain fries and you stare at your phone for 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like you either schedule it or you overload.
Yep.
I don't even know where that came from or why I'm thinking
No,
about it.
No, I know what you mean. I remember, it sounds weird, but some of the days that I remember working the longest was I was on a trail crew where we were digging trail, and we had to camp in a wall tent, and we had to get 8 days worth of work in per 2 weeks, but we could get it done as fast as we wanted. And so we had to be like up in the mountains in the tent the whole time. So it's like, we'd want to go up there and like get those 8 days worth of work done as quick as possible. And so we would literally work like as long as like we could physically work.
How is that defined? Like was it hourly? Was it like an hour? You need 8 days worth of work. So what was 8 days worth of work?
Eight. So like your typical, it was 40-hour work week.
Okay.
No, it'd be 10 days worth of work in 2 weeks. So it'd be like 10 8-hour days, 40 hours a week.
Okay.
So 80 hours as fast as we could get 80 hours done.
Yep.
And then we could come home. And so it was like,
was that 6 days? Like
what honestly, did you actually put it into? We were doing it in like, I want to say like 5 days or something. Like it was like 20-hour, like we were just because the tent was on the trail. And so it's like, what are we going to do? We're going to work.
What else are you going to do?
Yeah. And so I remember days where it was like you said, we'd be like, some of the stuff we were doing was like moving rocks off the trail. Like there's a rock slide. And I can remember like holding a rock and then just zoning out.
Yeah.
And then like the boss being like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, holy shit, I was standing here holding a rock for like a minute. And I was like, I wasn't even thinking. I don't know.
Well, and that's like that's a different one too, because you're actually probably battling some physical exhaustion.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this stuff relates, but like when I went through like crazy like burnout, that's kind of how it was framed to me too, which is like your brain and body are literally protecting you right now, because the next step is actually just having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so your system shuts down. But I think in like the context of just like work, this is fresh on my mind because a few days ago I had come to you and said, hey, as I'm like starting to work through this CAD process of like very organized, kind of forcing myself to use it and develop muscle memory, my question to you is like, how much time should I budget on a daily basis for that without where I'm getting the benefit of the learning, but not pushing past the point of like a return? And you had said like 3 hours is actually probably a really good amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because once you push past that, like, especially when you're learning, if you're really pushing past it, like maybe you stop retaining, or
your neuroplasticity is only elastic for so long before you just lock up.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's different if you're doing something like tedious, like digging post holes. That's a different feeling. But like you said, if you're learning actively, it's like you have so much gas in that tank. And beyond that, you're like sort of going backwards,
Yeah. Yeah. Or after. Well, it's like, I mean, we've talked about that a little bit, like the construct of the Industrial Revolution is like the 8-hour workday and like Henry Ford. I mean, like there's a lot of areas that makes a lot of sense, but I think on like a human level, 4 hours, sick.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm working back and forth, I guess. There's certain tasks that I just feel like fit perfectly in that mold, but like what you're doing right now, you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because you're in the creative role, but you're also in the manufacturer's role.
Yeah.
And spindle's got to turn.
Mm-hmm. I got to say though, I know I'm doing the right thing for me personally, because on Monday morning, I'm so excited
to get in.
And then Friday at night, I'm really bummed.
That's
and
good.
it's not,
yeah, that's a good feeling.
Once I get in the house, I'm like, oh, this is good. Like I'm spending time with my family, but like turning out the light and being like, I'm not going to be back in my shop for 2 days.
Yeah.
There's like a
It's
knife
hard.
like in my stomach.
Yeah.
And I like that. That's my mindset, and I don't want to abuse that.
Yeah.
But
that's where your balance is real nice right now. Mine, a lot of times I notice that drive around wanting to make improvements to the shop.
Yeah.
Like I'll get my work done and I'm like, man, I really want to build this table.
Yeah.
I think that being a maker maybe is just always building another table.
Yeah. Bigger, better, stronger.
Yeah. It's like you're like, man, I really could use a table over here now.
Mm-hmm.
Next stage will be cabinets, and then it'll be like cabinets forever.
If I built any more tables on my shop, I'd be walking on tables in there. So
here's a random question. As a maker, do you have any tools, equipment, or like supplies? I'm trying to make it as broad as possible, that you have an unreasonable like attachment to.
Let me think about that.
I'll give you my example, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're really like toolboxes.
Yeah.
So like I just have I have toolboxes as bases for tables. I have more toolboxes than I need. I have toolboxes that the drawers aren't full, and I will still buy another toolbox.
Yeah.
It's emotional.
Yeah.
Something there. Anything like that?
Oh, let me think. There's got to be something like that. I think for me, it's probably, I don't know if one fits the mold. It loosely fits what you're saying, but I've been looking at my drill press a lot recently, and my shop's so small that I'm like, why do I have a drill press in here still? But I'm thinking, how can you not have a drill press?
Don't do it. You can't. I mean, you could buck the system and be like, no, I don't own a drill press.
Yeah, but I'm like attached to it because it's a drill press. So it's the pillar of the metal
what
shop.
I would like to see is I would like you to get rid of your drill press, but get a small manual mill, and then routinely talk about how you don't have a drill press. And it would be like someone talking about how they don't watch TV, but then you find out they just watch Netflix on their computer.
Yeah, right.
This is amazing. You don't even own a TV?
I know, right? Like, look, I'll show you a picture of my living room on my iPhone.
Yeah, here it is.
No TV, see? But no, dude, the only thing I use the drill press for is I drill the holes for the clip to mount to the Kydex.
Right.
And the only reason I've been doing that is I would have to make a program that's left-handed and right-handed for the CNC to do it. And I just have been too lazy to make two programs, one that drills the left-handed and one that drills the right-handed that I switch between. And if I did that, I don't see anything in my future that needs a hole drilled in it, which is, I can't believe.
Can I throw you a curveball?
Yeah.
You got kids.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to show a kid how to use a drill press correctly than it is to show them how to use a CNC. You make things. I'm not, and I know your brain's trying to figure out why that is wrong.
Yeah.
Analog. Okay.
Yeah.
It's analog.
Yeah.
Like you can go out there with Delta and make something.
Yeah. Well, what if one day I show my 10-year-old kid this drill press in a storage unit and be like, this is like a CNC, but without the servos. And then they'll be like, oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Because usually I tell people, this is like a drill press, but with servos. And they're like, oh, I get it. No, I'm just kidding. But it might end up in a storage unit. I can't get rid of it.
Dude, I would be blown away. I can see it. I guess I just mess around too much, right? Which is like building little things and playing. And if I didn't have a drill press, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
The same way,
Yeah.
like fast, quick iterations, or like I'll still go build like a weird plastic template for something.
Yeah. For me though, that's 3D printing.
I get it. You're you're so efficient with it.
Well, I've had this sensation that I really want my shop. I can't fully do it right now, but I really want my shop to have nothing in it that doesn't pertain to making the products that
I
I
just had
make.
a horrible thought, which is like basically my shop is just full of crutches now. You've basically ruined it. So I don't need a drill press, but I should just be doing everything on my 3D printer. What a slacker I am.
Oh, geez, no.
That's fair though. Well, it's fair in where you are working and where you are going. It really does make perfect sense because you want to eliminate one, and there's a space issue, but you want to eliminate chatter.
Mm-hmm.
You're focused.
Yeah.
It's not serving you to have like these other things for other processes.
Yeah. Like right now, because, our house is small and I've got just the shop is the garage and we need part of the garage for storage. Like we have like our dog food out there and like just stuff like that you can't really keep in the house. And I just walk past it and it's like I feel like radiation sickness from it. I'm just like, it's not a knife making thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I just want like a sterile manufacturing thing that does only what it's supposed to do, like nothing else. And I don't know if that's smart, but it's just in me. I don't know.
No, I fully agree. And I would make the argument that overall my workspace is that. Like it is workspace. It is lit up like a baseball field. The walls are white and everything in that space is related to work. Like 99.9% of what is in our shop is work. The upstairs space feels different than the downstairs space because it's tailored to the work that's being done. So no, I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
It's weird. Dude. Yeah. Should we just call it? That was fun.
A twist and turn, and
it really was,
and quite the ending,
man. Yeah, I think we call it.
So, real quick, comment on this. Do you think I should keep the drill press or not?
Just guys, leave a comment. Let them know
to
keep the drill press,
and tell Burnley to stop using his, or tell him to get rid of the CNC. Give us advice.
Oh man! All right. I think soon you and I do some strategy sessions and lay out some fun episodes for the year. We got to figure out how to do a Q&A. I really want to do it. I would love to do a call-in show or something. I just don't know how to actually do it. So let's talk about that. Yeah. Guys, thank you for hanging out with us. Please leave us a review or share the podcast. We're having a lot of fun and we hope you are too. And we will see you or hear you or talk to you soon.
Peace.